Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. It's the May 20th Board of Education work session. Mike, can you call the roll?
Mr. Bedford.
Here.
Ms. Crooked.
Here.
Ms. Hogan.
Here.
Ms. Cogertle.
Here.
Ms. Kutner. Ms. Paoli.
Here.
Mr. Vecchio.
Here.
Vice President Seidel.
Here.
President Sangillo.
Here. Let's rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mike, would you read us the statement concerning open public meetings?
Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been given by the Superintendent of Schools in the following manner. On January 15th, 2021, notice of this meeting was posted on the interior of the school administration offices, 1 Lincoln Avenue, Haddonfield. Written notice was submitted and filed with the Haddonfield Borough Clerk, and notices were faxed to the Courier Post and mailed to the Retrospect newspaper.
All right, thank you for being here early where we completed our executive session. We're going to lead tonight off with a presentation about our summer learning program from Dr. Colleen Murray.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm happy to introduce the summer learning program for this summer. We're really excited about it. I'll briefly talk about the approach we're taking, how it's grounded in data and evidence, some of the offerings that we have, and looking ahead to next year. Our approach is one of learning acceleration. This might look a little bit different from if you went to summer school as a younger person, or if you're used to summer school, it might look a little bit different because it's focused on enrichment and acceleration. We're targeting our most vulnerable students, grades K to 12, current grades K to 12, and we're using the whole child approach where we're trying to address academic but also social needs of children. And we're doing that by using experiential, hands-on, and project-based learning. We'll be practicing core literacy, STEAM literacy, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, and it'll be standards-based documented growth. So the funding for this is through the Every Student Succeeds Act formula, and that means that we have to address the comprehensive needs of the children, and that's why we're using PBL, project-based learning, and social-emotional learning. And it also has to be evidence-based. Another unique feature of this program is that we have a small partnership with Haddon Township. They've been really gracious and they're offering some spots on their new building course for grades 4 to 8. And they've also shared with us some resources on a social entrepreneurship course, which is going to be held in both buildings. It's going to be a little bit of a collaboration across the districts. Student selection, again, is a needs-based, using the ESSA formula. It's a tiered approach, so there will be 3 tiers, using traditional data points such as benchmarks, 504, INRS, and such. Outreach is set to begin soon, in the next couple of days. I want to take a second to thank Mary Hall. She's a 5th grade Tatum teacher who's been helping with the administrative duties of this program. And she's created a website, and she's created, registration forms, and she'll be reaching out to parents starting in the next couple of days. The 2nd tier, she'll be reaching out to them early June, and the 3rd tier, mid-June. And then the program dates are from July 6th through the 29th. These are the dates. Time frame is 8:30 to 12:30 with a 30-minute snack. A little bit about program specifics. Grades K to 5, we've partnered with AlphaBest. They provide a STEM-based, project-based learning curriculum. It follows a storyline through the weeks, and every week has a project, a culminating project. And every day the students are using STEM skills, some music, some art courses are also going to be available at the K to 5 level. In grades 6 to 8, right now we have a writing course, some music courses, new building with Haddon Township, and tentatively 3D building. Grades 9 to 12, we have that social entrepreneurship class. We have a class Preserving American Freedom, experimental science, and also a math project-based learning course. The locations are Tatum, grades K to 5, the middle school, grades 6 to 8, and the high school, grades 9 to 12. Plus, there's that limited Haddon Township partnership. So there'll be some students who will be able to go over to Haddon Township. And then, like I said, the evidence, it'll be standards-based. It's intended to complement our curriculum, but not supersede or conflict with it. And we will be documenting growth. Looking ahead, we'll be using that documentation of growth to prove proof of concept. Hopefully we'll be able to run this again next year and it'll be even more improved, especially we'll have this year's work to set the groundwork. We also recognize that because it's a limited program, we won't be able to reach every student who might benefit from this. And so we're looking at a mentoring program for next year. And we're also planning on continuing our instructional support program next year. That's it. Any questions?
Are they gonna be required to try out the new on water after? That'll put a lot of pressure on the design.
I know.
Transportation to Haddon Township schools, who's providing that?
It would be up to the parents to provide that, although, you know, they would have a choice. So one of the hardest parts about this program, honestly, especially for Mary, who's doing a lot of the outreach, is matching up people with the right classes. Because, you know, a student might want to take the chemistry class, or they might want to take the social entrepreneurship class. But what we'll know is that they qualify to take the class, you know, and so the first tier kids will get first pick of the courses. They all really look amazing, all of the courses. So it's a little easier at the elementary level because for the most part it's the alphabet, so it's the you know, consistent program across the grades. But they did, you know, raise something that we've been talking about a little bit, is like, well, what happens if they can't get over there?
I'm sorry if you said this, but how are the students chosen that can participate?
We're using a 3-tiered approach, which means we're starting with the IRS students first, and then the second tier is students who are below benchmark on grades on benchmarks B and C. So that's part of what's holding us up, is that we have to wait until C. C is just finishing up in some of the grades. And then like the third tier is students with disabilities who maybe they're special ed and they didn't qualify for ESY. And then 504 is in that one as well. You know, free and reduced lunch, that type of thing. So it's a tiered approach, trying to target the students who definitely needed the most.
And is there any chance that there will be less participants than there are spots?
You know, that's what Mary and I talk about a lot, is like, well, what if there's a really big imbalance? But I think it's going to flush out really nicely. I think it's just going to be hard. You know, we Haddonfield, Chuck's, you know, let me know, and I learned from Sean Sweeney, we used to have a summer program. But the difference is that was tuition based, and it was, you chose to go if you wanted to go. So as far as I know, we've never provided one that was paid for, and we're able to do that because of the new funding that we have. So it is going to be a little strange, but we're hopeful that we're going to be able to, you know, give everyone who feels they need a spot.
To follow up on that, though, we always provided one for students who had a threat of regression. So this is maybe students that are above that level, but is that correct?
No, not necessarily. You know, it could be a student who, you know, just maybe they're below, you know, grade level.
Right, but I'm saying that students who have IEPs
Oh, sure.
will always get summer.
That's ESY, it's a different program.
Sorry.
So that's also in place too, Heather. So ESY is continuing like we traditionally do, and then this is another
But
program.
this is kind of for the tier
Right,
above that.
correct.
So inventing a term, a COVID IEP, basically, you know, somebody you've identified as having a need. And I only mention it because you mentioned that those that might not be able to take opportunity in the summer, or even after the summer, you still feel need. Could you describe what that mentor program sounds like? Because it doesn't sound like a traditional, like one-on-one to get that kid up to speed or anything like that.
Unfortunately, it's still completely in the brain area right now, the mentor program. We have not fleshed it out yet. I am working with a couple of other districts, and they're in the same boat where we're thinking about a mentor program. We're kind of talking about what it's going to look like, but, you know, I can promise you I'll do lots of research.
Like peer-based mentor program?
No, but it's funny you say that, because one of the classes at the high school level, if they are not able to fill the spots, as you know, as talked about, We're talking about maybe having some kids come in and mentor, some kids that wouldn't qualify necessarily, but might be interested in the content matter. So no, in my mind and in my colleagues' mind, when I talk to other curriculum directors, it's more like a teacher mentoring the students. And, we will have other, funding to be able to fund a program like that. It's just, it's very much in the idea phase right now.
And how do you then assess if they've achieved the grade level? Do they retest with like Lincoln C of the year before or something like that? Like, do you reassess using the same instrument?
Or for a summer,
No. So they go through the summer program. How is the assessment that they've
so,
benefited enough to gain that grade level?
well, that's where it's, it's not your traditional, like, Johnny is behind in standard, whatever, such and such. And so we're going to address that now because it's enrichment and learning acceleration based, that those literacy practices will be happening, but they'll be happening more organically because project-based learning is more of a discovery process. And so, and when you think of like traditional, interventions, those are behaviorists where, it's a stimulus response. You're responding to a stimulus. This is more discovery based, so I'm having a hard time.
No, I get what you're getting at. I guess I'm just.
But, and actually, sorry, to finish, we will have benchmark C at the end of this year, and then we will have, benchmark A in the fall, so we should be able to see some growth there, but also we've built in time, an hour a day for teachers to focus on documentation, and it's standards-based documentation. So it'll look different in each of the classes, but it'll be consistent throughout. The program.
Well, and then that's why I kind of say COVID IEP, because that's what that sounds like,
Yep.
where you do an individual assessment, during that first block of time in the year to base, to get the baseline. Even before we had Lincoln, we did that.
I really like that. I'm going to steal that, if that's all right.
Yeah, no,
Open IEP.
Matt already did.
All right, Colin.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Colin.
Any other
Thank you.
questions for Colin? Great, thanks. Looking forward to seeing that play out this summer. Let's start with curriculum committee. Jamie, how can you give us a report?
Okay, we met on May 12th and the week before that. So we met 2 times this month. A lot of our discussion was based on what Colleen's already presented. Thank you so much for your work on this. It's taken a lot of brain power and collaboration and thinking outside the box. So I think it's a good program. We, aside from the summer program, we talked about re-envisioning middle school parent conferences. Middle school parent conferences, the current model, which I think if you talk to most people, we know it doesn't work. It is based on the K-8 model, which or not just a few years ago, our middle school was based on more of a K-8 model. Now it's based on more of the 6-12 model because we have departmentalization, and all of that changes the look of what conferences would be and the role that they play for students. And so we are discussing how can we recapture the 250 instructional minutes that are lost for conferences, and how can we make them more personalized and equitable. And so we will, there will be sending out a communication to parents about that once more determinations are made. Another thing discussed was elementary schools and LGBTQIA+ communication, because there will be teachers and administration and the community thinks it's important to send out information to parents to give them an awareness around and some of the books and curriculum that the students will be doing. And so we will send out a communication that will explain the LGBTQ books and discussions that they'll be having in class, and that will give parents an opportunity to know about classroom discussions in case they want to have family conversations as well, and in case there's any concerns. We talked about the summer learning, and that's really it. They were the major things that we discussed about.
Jamie, if I can just comment real quick on the LGBTQ communication, which I think is fantastic that, your committee's planning on sending that out. Over the years, I easily have had 12 different families reach out to me, tell me that they believe that their child is either somewhere on the spectrum of LGBTQ, and they're very nervous because they feel like their child's the only one. And I keep telling them, in confidence, I can't tell you who the other families are, but I'm telling you, you're one of many that has approached me just because they wanted to say that we know that a board member is gonna look out for our kids and that the school's gonna make the right decision. So I think sending that communication is just a wonderful, the school's always been doing this, but this way now the parents will know, and that will be a big relief to them, so thanks.
And New Jersey doesn't require LGBTQ education in the elementary schools, but in our diversity initiative and our equity council, there's been a lot of talk because there are children who identify early. And it's important to, have everyone represented. So I think it's great that the teachers are on board with this, and also that they know that they're supported by the board and that they're not alone, right?
It's a letter coming from the administration. We were being told about it. Like, just for
Right.
point of clarification,
Yeah.
the committee doesn't send a letter, and the board doesn't send a letter to parents about curriculum. That's an administrative job. We're just being made aware.
Right,
As it
exactly.
falls in line
But
with
one
district
of,
goals.
but there was the issue of support and knowing that there was
Right,
support.
100%.
when-
Oh, yeah, no.
Because we do.
I just
you know.
didn't want,
Oh, yeah,
I
no,
want that.
and I believe some of it's coming from the teachers and the principals more so. I don't even think it's a district-wide. I think it's teachers.
So all of the information that informed the letter came from the librarians and
Okay.
Shelley Zion, and we reached out to a couple of the districts.
Colleen, you coordinated? That was in your wheelhouse? Yeah, thanks, Colleen. All right. Any other questions for Jamie? All right, Justin? Oh, where'd he go?
Over here.
Oh, my God.
Thank you.
It was like magic.
Oh, now in
That's it.
person.
It's there now.
By the way,
Invisible
it's a
lawyer.
central PTA meeting. If they want me to squeeze that
Yeah, we'll do that it's on the agenda now.
Oh, it's.
Excellent. Yeah.
So, the Finance and Facilities Committee met on May 11th. The first item we discussed was capital improvements. I believe you're going to be hearing from Mike next Thursday. And basically, the idea here is, right, we want to make sure we continue to improve, getting better at both our maintenance and our capital planning. And so we talked about, kind of where we've been and where we're going. And so for the last bond referendum, what are the things that we didn't get? Things like not just infrastructure, but modern learning, educational adequacy, things like that. So you should hear more about that next week. We talked about ESSER 2 funds, which I believe elementary and secondary emergency funding. There are a few different, a few different pieces to that. And so we talked about getting, it's money that comes from the federal government that we receive through the state, about $45,000 for mental health. We talked about another bucket of about $29,000 for learning acceleration. And we talked about another bucket of about $457,000 that we're going to get. But the purpose there is mainly, towards indoor air quality. And so we got to figure out the best way to use those funds. So expect to hear more from the administration on that. There's timing, time by which we need to use those funds. I believe it is September 23rd, so kind of moving towards that.
2020.
Summer of 23.
September 12th, I say, not September 23rd, September of 2023, so we have plenty of time. Thank you. And then we talked about, an agreement we reached basically recognizing certain employees as members of the unit, IT and tech specialists. We talked about the grocery property. We were approached about potentially buying that. It's 95 Grove, which is the old Remington and Vernick building, which formerly was a 7-Eleven, and then 79 Grove. And we talked about whether it made sense for the district to consider purchasing that building. We all know space is at a premium. It's great to do it where it makes sense.
But the physical building, actually, I think we just got a sketch today, Mike, I think, and the design was, able to fit, I think, 2 classrooms, maybe 3 offices, closet. So the building is currently structured, doesn't really offer us a ton of value right now. The lot size, I think, was about 8,300 square feet. And then there's also 79 Grove, which I understand is more of a house and it's really tight fit, not really something, I believe Linda toured it together with Mike, not something that we could really utilize for much of anything. So on one hand, always great to acquire property. The other hand, the current setup isn't great for us. And, the price they were asking, just to share with you, was about $1.3 million, which.
For the two together?
For the two together, it's all one parcel, so. Altogether, it seemed like a steep price for what it offered. And in that location, for anybody that does Tatum, drop off, you kind of pull in there and you wait forever to kind of get out, and Grove is kind of busy, so you gotta take that into account, but I think we all agree it's worth continuing to take a hard look at it, and see whether or not it makes sense for us to pursue. We also discussed, in terms of the timeline, we acquired that property. The earliest we'd probably be able to do it is, I think we're July of 2022. People like Susan, Mike, and now us, I suppose, just told us, understand there's a process of needing to go to the Office of School Facilities. They have a 90-day review process, has to go through the budget process. And so it's not something that we would necessarily be able to do quickly. And we did talk about, we were to pursue it, how to preserve our option. And members of the committee had ideas around ways that we could potentially preserve our ability to pursue a property with that kind of a time frame. We talked about the small Tatum playground. You all might recall there were a couple of things that were happening at Tatum. PTA was generous enough to have a Gaga pit installed recently. There's also playground that they're trying, small playground trying to raise funds for. Remember, we redid the larger playground, which was about 7,200 square feet. Smaller playground is about 2,500 square feet. And so redoing that, we just need to continue to look at that and be involved and understand, the challenges that are involved with doing that, and maintaining that playground along the way. So expect there will be more conversations about that. We talked about Scout Field. There are just a number of wear spots on the field. We had images that were shared with us. You could see on the field where we're starting to wear. And so there was this suggestion to potentially shift that field 90 degrees. And if you were to do that, you would lose the baseball field, which I understand we don't use for district purposes, but Little League, I believe, may use that field some limited basis. So obviously we've got to take care of the field. We were throwing out there things like, what else could we do with the field? Could we ever do, with the turf field? Obviously the cost of that would be huge. There'd be other challenges. I think, certain of us were like, well, might need lights, if you get a turf field. But, we've said, let's look at it and at least understand our options. But that's kind of separate from the need to go ahead and rotate that field.
Justin, I have a question if you don't mind me asking in the middle. Does it interfere? I didn't understand that it interfered with the baseball field. I thought it was like a non-interference.
No, he did say that if they turned it, then it would affect the baseball diamond, but he said that he doesn't believe that that's been used in the past couple of years.
Okay,
Yeah.
I misunderstood.
That's what I.
Yeah.
Only
I didn't hear
to, make it, do the 90-degree turn like Justin said, then yes, it would interfere with the baseball. That's not what we're planning on doing. We were thinking about it, but of course to accomplish that, you would have to get rid of the ball.
But you can shift it with.
We've already done.
Yeah,
We've already
mine's
done
like
it,
that.
we've shifted it, don't quote me on the how far left or right.
You moved it.
20
Yeah.
feet in one direction to avoid the wear and tear spots, mainly around where the goals are for lacrosse and soccer.
Okay, sorry. I was-
No. We talked about, ordinary things that, the district, just does in the ordinary course, like, certain landscaping. I think, similar to Tatum, where we need a lot of landscaping up front. Lizzie Haddon, needs some landscaping work. Just kind of got the heads up on that. I think the final item we discussed was the monthly borough meeting. The land swap was discussed. And I believe we're hoping to see SHPO approval in June. And so, once that happens, obviously there's some demolition that needs to happen. So, committee started to have concerns around, like, all right, well, what's the timing? This is all starting to line up, and we got to get our ducks in a row and be ready. That's it.
Thanks, Justin. Any other questions? Yeah, so I think we just, the one thing I wanted to highlight is, we in the committee, we said, let's let Mike find out what does it take to turf and light a field. That's one field, that you could get a lot more use out of. And I know field time is a constant complaint from our youth sports organizations, and it's a property we own in the middle of town. So we said, just so we're a more well-informed board making decisions about our capital expenditures going forward, we wanted to know what would it take so we can include that in this capital plan for the next, 3, 5, 10 years. So gathering data.
You might
No
get money
decisions.
groups to raise money for it as well.
Yeah, I mean, but we won't know how much money raised. We don't know what it costs. So I thought it was worth reiterating doing that.
It's great to hear that, because you're right. You're basically saying it's worth pursuing because, who knows, wherever it comes out, and it's attainable.
Yep.
We have some options.
Yep. All right, good. Thanks, Justin. Lynn, would you like to take us on a policy journey?
It's pretty short one. So we met May 13th, and we discussed the policy that's on the agenda for first reading this month, which is food services, and we simply just removed language that expressly permitted high school students living within 5 blocks of the school to go home for lunch. Obviously, especially this year, way more people leave school for lunch with principal permission. We reviewed about 10 existing policies and pulled a few for further discussion. One was regarding field trips. It's just very detailed and specific. It mentions field trips that we no longer take. And we'll revert that in upcoming months. And also 2 more policies. The assessment of pay of support staff, again, just needs some revision. It talks about imposing penalties on staff if they don't fulfill their duties, but then doesn't mention. So we'll take a look at that one. And then alcohol and beverages on school premises, referenced a few policies that were referring to teachers and support staff having alcohol on premises and not students. So we just need to remove a couple policies that don't fit. That was it. We have a few policies that we'll talk about in upcoming months that we have discussed earlier in the year, like tutoring and homework. And we just need to revisit those.
I have a question, and maybe I'm being too preemptive with this, but with the legalization of marijuana, should we include that in the?
We have separate policies.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed the meeting, but the removing of the 5 blocks to go home for lunch for high school students. When we're back in September and the open campus goes back to juniors and seniors, will that restrict freshmen and sophomores who live across the street from going to lunch?
No, it's simply, it only talked about kids living within a 5-block vicinity, so we just took that out. It says that if you have, the assumption is the kids will stay on school grounds during lunch unless they have principal approval.
Okay.
So principal approval
parents say my kid can open campus, I give that permission.
But that's only for juniors and seniors. So if I live on Sylvan Lake and I'm a freshman, I can't, this was common practice, we'll walk across the street and go home for lunch.
Well, they
That
can
would
if
no
they
longer-
get principal.
They'd have to get
approval.
a special permit, okay.
And this policy required approval, it only specified high school students in that vicinity. But it still said parents need to pre-approve and the principal. So we're just taking out that really specific language. But anyone with principal approval can.
Okay.
Because
So,
we were talking.
but I guess
even
what I'm
elementary
saying,
school.
that by doing that, you just made open campus a 9 to 12 policy.
She made it a K
No,
to
it's in
12
reverse.
policy, but they need principal approval.
Yeah.
And I don't say she, the whole
Yeah.
policy committee.
It
did
just
that.
removed the provision that you could not leave the building for lunch if
Unless,
you were outside of a 5-block radius. So if you live 6 blocks away, according to this policy, you cannot leave for lunch.
it restricted open campus. It
So
didn't allow it.
this- All this.
But
all
now,
this-
if I live over by Central School, I can write the principal and say, my kid's leaving campus for lunch.
If the principal approves it, then you can. If the
Okay.
principal doesn't approve it.
What the policy in elementary
So
school.
I guess the reason why the 5 blocks was in there was so the principal didn't have to decide who got to go home for lunch. If you're within 5 blocks, you got approved. If you were beyond that, you didn't get approved, right? That was the thing. Then we had open campus for 11th and 12th grades, which removed all those things. So now what can happen is any freshman in the district can say, we're taking open campus, we're leaving during lunch. And that is not permitted. Whereas in the past, the principal would say, no, you live too far away. So that's what the committee decided. As a guy who used to run this building, that's the first thing that pops in my mind is that 5 blocks was important to me because I could say, no, you can't go home because you live over by there and you're just gonna go downtown and get a slice of pizza. You're not going home for lunch.
But if you decide next year you want open campus to just be juniors and seniors again, Tammy says
Right.
it's only juniors and seniors. Because we were even talking about elementary school, like I've taken my kids out to lunch.
I think
in
signing a
elementary
kid
school.
out is different than a kid having carte blanche to leave school for the entire year for lunch.
Principal has to.
Well, and since it's not on the policy for next week, it sounds like it's something we should consider in the policy
Okay.
to express, because it expressly forbade
I'm not-
open
I'm not-
campus, the policy as
I
it
might not be
stood.
expressing my concern correctly, so I'll reword it.
I think we hear it. I think
Yeah.
this might be more of a concern for freshmen and sophomores in high school because.
That's
they might take
exclusive what I'm
advantage of
talking
it.
about, right?
Only because I know Lizzie had families whose child every Friday or every Monday would walk home and they gave the permission to the principal and they lived close enough and it made sense.
Yeah.
I don't know
But
that.
it's not the way you practice.
I mean, I'm not sure if that happened. I always, when I took my kids out to lunch, I would go in
So,
and sign them.
Yeah,
and
you
sign
do.
them
Yeah.
out.
in
And then I had
this,
to bring them back.
Now.
You also,
Yeah.
I know where you.
In this
live
building-
further than that fence.
in this building, you have kids who are sophomores, who are friends with the juniors, who have open campus. And now the parent can say, oh yeah, my kid, even though I live
Yeah.
8 blocks away, I'm giving my kid permission to leave school for lunch. They now have open campus too. And the open campus specifically is designed for juniors and seniors. I'll look at the policy, we can talk about it.
I do think we should talk about it again, because what's gonna happen is because this is exactly what happened at middle school. The first kid that realizes that there's that loophole, there will
Yeah.
then be 70 more, and there will be 100 more, and everyone will have open campus.
And they've gotten a taste of it this year.
Yeah.
This
So-
is, just so I'm sure, this is not
A
on
bad
this.
taste.
What's that?
Oh, okay.
No.
Just rework, I mean,
Yeah, this
it needs to be reworked.
This is a first reading. It's on first.
Oh, it is
reading.
first reading?
Yeah.
Hold it.
Oh, I thought the only one on the policy was food service.
That's part of it. That's in the food.
It's in the
that's
food
part of
service. Oh, yeah,
I
no.
read it and I saw that.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to, I think we have to take,
Yeah.
reconsider it. Let's do it next one. Because, I was gonna make a joke, but Gino, I'm not gonna do that to you.
Thank you, President.
I mean, we can,
Yeah, I mean,
we can sit down and talk about this between now and next Thursday and just hear out and iron out my concerns, and you can say,
Yeah, maybe we could do.
here's your concerns,
I'd
but
rather
here's what it is,
discuss
and then discuss it next Thursday too. We discuss
I
it.
see both sides, and I don't wanna quickly put something on there, there's no urgency. I hate forcing things through.
And I think, to Chuck's point, yeah, because I do think there's a lot of issues that are being created by having just blanket open campus. So, but I think language added to it, we can decide that.
And the elementary is different in that kids don't go with their older friends to hang out downtown. But that is, this will be, we're gonna go to Cordova for lunch every day.
Yeah.
And I can't come because my friends are juniors, and I'm on this tennis team with my friends who are juniors. I'm a sophomore, but I can, and so in the past, the restriction was, sorry, Chuck, you live too far away from school to have this privilege. So the intent of this 5 blocks is you can walk home to your house, make yourself your peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and walk back to school. If you take that deciding factor out, the parents, you just say, I'm going to have my child home for lunch. That might be Chuck's paranoia of creating a thing for maybe that one person will take advantage of, but it's just something I think we should talk about.
Sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah.
What's that?
It sounds like a bad idea to let freshmen
It-
and
it will not
sophomores
be
And
one
have
person.
open
including the middle
campus.
school, because it's not just high school, right? It's everywhere. So the middle school would have to be.
The middle school doesn't even
have it.
doesn't even walk home for lunch. Has never technically had a walk home for lunch
Oh,
option.
okay.
Got a parent sign, specific parent
Okay.
by day, I would think.
I pulled up to Mickey B's and there were like all these kids sitting outside eating. I was like, oh, you guys on lunch? They're like, yeah, this is great. Bunch of middle schoolers. Oh, God. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Lynn? Linda, we did meet this one.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
communication.
That was the beginning of, that was a release, right?
Yeah, it was, May 3rd, was it?
Yeah.
So yeah, we met and we, May 4th. We talked about the initial intent of the communications committee that was just formed last year. And the idea was for the board to be able to communicate directly to parents and to the community about what's going on right now on the board, what has happened in board meetings, and upcoming policies that they might be interested in. And we did recognize last year that communication was not very effective because it wasn't reaching many people. So we started talking this year about, is there a better vehicle to communicate? So going down that path, Chuck, Gino, and some of the admin team have been looking at communication vehicles, and they had a demo from one company, and I think you're looking at it.
We have a second,
Okay,
that
have a
just came
second.
up, the second came up.
So they're gonna take the time, they're going to evaluate, does this make sense? Does it work as a communication vehicle for the district? And then, if so, then it seems like there will be a place for the board to use that communication vehicle to get back into the process of communicating, board meetings and that kind of thing, starting in September. So we're awaiting them and their feedback on what they think is the best way to do this, and we'll go from there.
When you say communication vehicle, do you mean an app
That is what they're looking for.
That's what I have.
for the whole district, but then the board would be a part of that, is what you're saying?
The app would cover the entire district, but each school would have their own part of the app, the board communication would be part of the app. So, the central office would have their own piece. So it's not just getting the app, it's getting who communicates with the app, what level. Is it just administration higher? Is it get down into the teacher level? The biggest features are that you're looking at is calendars, right? So the calendars can be set up that if I have a child in high school and at Tatum, I can sync the Tatum calendar and the high school calendar to my Outlook. Or I can sync the whole district calendar there too. So one of the things you have to consider is how much information. Right now, most of our calendars are just like prom, right? But you can in a Google Calendar, you can put in a lot of detail, right? You can put in links in there. All that can be downloaded in your feed. So that's a big feature. And the other one that we hear is the ability to find information, searchable information. So newsletters coming out from principals or from the central office are searchable. So they come out as text, not just links. So I can find out when the yearbook is ordered. I can search yearbook. I can find out when the yearbook is coming out. those type of things. They're the two biggest things we're targeting first. And then the other pieces, how we communicate as a general philosophy, right? So our parents are busy, and should we relook at how long our communications are? If we look at all those type of things. So there's going to be layers to this, and that we need to get a way to get this in everyone's hands quickly and easily. And because of the world we live in, the app is what we go to first. But also, we hear it all the time. Well, we sent the email. I don't read your emails. I get too many of those. Right? That's a very, very common response we get when a parent calls up with a question and says, "We sent the email last week, last Sunday." You get that every Sunday. I get that. I don't read those things. That's very common. And so, looking at that as part of this policy, as part of what we communicate. I think a lot of those e-blasts on Sundays, if the calendars are built in a robust fashion, takes those Sunday e-blasts and makes them a whole different animal. Because you go to your calendar to see what's happening, not to the e-blast. So that's part of what I'm trying to understand.
So to answer your question, Chuck and Gino are taking the lead, and it's really district communication. But if they go with the app, then we will have a little spot on the app where it can be the board communication, and then we truly do have a place where parents write in their hands could go, you could get through something. So kind of kill two birds with one stone.
We have to figure out a way when we're back in regular session without the YouTube to continue to use Feed. Have we talked about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, we didn't talk
All
about
right,
that. We made a promise to the community already
Yeah.
to continue to
Yeah.
stream our meetings even when they're in
So
person.
we set it an 1 hour and 53 minutes into the February 22nd meeting. Read the tape.
Well, the three things we said we'll still take written submissions in a form base.
That's a rule change. That's it.
Then you can call and you can appear in person. And the call necessitated the need to stream it.
I thought the call we weren't. I thought we were only doing written and in person once we went to.
We-
I thought it was
I
the
think,
same.
yeah, we
That
were
was
doing
a
the
discussion. That was a
calls,
discussion we had. But I don't think we ever landed on it.
Oh, okay,
The policy. So that was a policy that came up with the table because we figured we'd get through this world first.
Oh,
When we
okay.
turn to normalcy, we would come back. Am I correct, Linda?
I think it was required because of the nature of our meeting now, so it was a COVID specific policy.
Right.
Because we were meeting semi-virtually, we had to allow the call. So I don't think it mandates them.
In the future, right.
Well, we could talk about using a chat feature of the stream.
Yeah, I think one thing we, just to be cognizant of, I miss having people here and the energy and the kind of reading the crowd and them being here to communicate. And if I just think that that's important moving forward, that we get that in person. That we are able to have people in the community.
Oh.
I love having people in person. I will add that I think because of COVID and everybody wanting to know how we were gonna reopen schools, I think we got viewership on the YouTube channel that never existed to the same level with the Civic Association tapes, only because of COVID. COVID drove everybody to watch it because they were really antsy about what decisions were gonna be made. But now that we have it, and now that the public is used to it, I think we should continue to utilize it because we're reaching a bigger audience, because they got used to it. But I definitely want to open up to in person as well.
No, I think that's what we're saying.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
gonna continue it. I think you were talking about, do we
Allow
take
phone.
the calls? and-
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
yeah. But there's time for that, but definitely the YouTube and having it streamed. I think also watching it live, it makes a difference.
Well, having
Even
the
if you're
recordings
watching-
though, from a transparency standpoint, why are we relying on the Civic Association to keep an eye on us? We could do it ourselves and post it. And they still do what they're doing, which is downloading them from YouTube and putting them back on their site for independent posterity.
Good. Any other questions for Linda? Okay. Tom, take us out with negotiations.
We are on the cusp of an agreement with the HEA. A couple more steps couple I's to be dotted, T's to be crossed, and should be hopefully more detailed and better news next week, next Thursday. This is 100% my responsibility. I did it. In all seriousness, well, it's becoming a theme tonight in our committee reports. All the credit goes to Chuck and Gino and to Sean and Rachel. And they really put in a lot of effort and they were committed to this process. And I think one of the things we just need to figure out is the last time that we were settled before the expiration of the current contract, because there seems to be some dispute. We're ranging now, guesses from 15 to 30 years. But either way, if we get this done in the next couple of weeks, a job very well done, and our thanks to the participants on behalf of the committee and the board.
And I think that, Chuck, I think you were the one that said this in our last meeting, to have the teachers, after the year that they had, to be able to end the school year and go out in the summer without having the contract hanging out there, knowing that there's an agreement and starting the school year fresh. I mean, it's just wonderful. I mean, our sincerest thanks to you guys for pushing through, and for Sean and Rachel.
Good stuff. All right. So PTA updates. Justin, you mentioned you were at Central.
Yes, I did mention that. So first, they covered a lot here, by the way. I'll go through this quickly as I can. But they were happy to be in person. A lot of stuff I think is important here. It's kind of boots on the ground. But mentioned just their appreciation to be back in school, the kids' appreciation, and how nice it is to just see their happy faces. And they're appreciative of parent volunteers, which I think you've heard Chuck say over and over about lunch, how it wouldn't happen without the parent volunteers. So they acknowledge that. They did acknowledge also that there have been some struggles with kids having to reacclimate, being together, and that part of going to school is also learning social skills, and how that's a part of learning and managing conflict and social interactions. They talked about the fact that NJSLA did not happen this year, as you know, but that there is a strong assessment at the beginning of the year. Teachers are in the process of doing class placements for next year. We say parents fill out characteristic profiles, but that this whole process is a labor of love, that they take very seriously. They look at all sorts of things, academics, social skills, etc. That process started in April and will end in June, although some things will go past that. We talked about space, which is another topic we've discussed at the board. For first grade, I know the numbers were 25, and 25 for the pre-classes, and that some first graders were sent to other schools. Talked about they're kind of getting too away from the cap for fifth grade. They also mentioned wanting to have some experiences of a field trip for each grade. So first grade went to Hopkins Pond, second grade did a sculpture tour through Haddonfield, third grade I think had a scaled down presentation from Haddonfield Theater. Fourth grade, normally they meet the commissioners at their hall. This year it's outside. Fifth grade, there's a trip to Camp Hockenmicken. Everybody here is nodding their head.
Yeah.
First I heard that.
You're such a noob.
They mentioned
Why should I
teacher
find?
appreciation and just how thankful the teachers were for everything that was done for them. Appreciation week. And so, they wrote so many cards and letters, et cetera. It was interesting because they were starting to discuss, the things that they had done, and whether there were things that they could do, to be done differently. And the overwhelming reaction from everybody was teachers really just appreciate anything that can be done for them. So it's nice to hear that A, parents, doing so much for kids, and B, teachers appreciate it so much. There are a couple of other things I know the PTA Central is working on, which I won't mention because it's a surprise. There is this weekend Cheetah Chasers 5K. Saturday and Sunday, you can kind of do it on your own, which is also this couple of the Boys and Girls on the Run, which is a culmination of what they've been doing this year. There's also a fundraising effort with a for athletic. They mentioned the book fair that they were going through, just how kids were super excited and they had something as simple as a guessing contest, and it was like a kid won a car. Won a guessing contest. We mentioned that it had gone smoothly, utilizing things like e-balls, and we put $30 in, my kids put their using an e-ball, it was helpful. They had a virtual spaghetti bingo, where they catered it to Severinos. That went really well. They mentioned there's somebody that helps out putting the whole yearbook together, which is a really big effort, parents do. And so they really acknowledge this parent for a great job she had done there. There was also a scavenger event after school for 5th graders. So all kinds of things that they've done and that they're working on. And they said it's really a huge team effort. So a lot going on there, which is consistent with, I know when I was the Tatum PTA rep, same kind of things going on there. Tremendous amount of work happening. With, so just, it's great to see.
Thanks, Justin. Anyone? You have one? Tatum or Liz, you have one?
I was just gonna say, I went to the high school one, but I didn't bring my notes, so I'll give you the update next week.
Okay.
Lynn and I went to the Haddonfield Educational Trust. Their biggest fundraiser is June 21st. It's the golf outing. And you might not be able to win a car, but you can win a bike, a Pettigo electric bike, value of around $5,000 by doing the closest ball contest. $20 for one ball, $50 for 3 balls. They're going to paper the town very soon with the details on how to, or go to Kings Road, grab a glass. They also take the donations and sell you the ball tickets there, as well as online.
Is it a putt, a chip?
No, it's a ball drop. So what they do is at Tavistock at the putting green, they will bring the fire truck, and put the ladder all the way to the top, and all the balls with your number on it are dumped. And first in the hole, and if none go in the hole, the closest to the hole is the winner of the bike. So $20 for a ball, $50 for 3. It's their biggest fundraiser. It goes to teacher grants as well as project beautification and the new project of fundraising for the auditorium and any improvements that the district approves.
And the bike, I'm guessing, is from.
It's from Haddonfield Pettigo,
Yep,
yes.
okay.
They have not advertised this at all yet, right? I haven't even seen that.
No, well, they're gonna be hitting it hard because they weren't really.
Sure if they were going to do it.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But now that the things have been lifted, it's a rush, and to be able to play a course like Tavistock, not everybody can, and it's a challenging course. So there's not many days that can be. No, that has to be touched. I'll get it, John. We're gonna turn off. I'm used to that sound too. So it's a great opportunity to either sponsor holes, sponsor activities, sponsor. I don't know if they're having the dinner afterwards. I don't think so. We didn't talk about that.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But good luck. Get some balls.
Great. Any other PTA or committee assignments?
I just have the PTA. I actually was not able to attend the middle school PTA, but I checked in with them before and got notes afterward. They too were talking about teacher appreciation. They had a very extensive plan for teacher appreciation, which is just great. Everything went off well. There are 8th grade signs that they organized. I'm sure you guys are seeing them around town for the 8th graders that are being promoted. And they just announced a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade trip for the end of the year, Funflex. So it's PTA sponsored, but it's a way for these kids to have some kind of a trip together as a class. So it's feeling like some of those things that used to be part of the school year are coming back, which I'm sure feels really good for the kids.
And it's 2 trips, right? One for
Yeah,
6th
one for the
graders
6th
and then
grade,
one
yeah.
for 7th, 8th grade?
Yeah, it's same day, different time. I think
Oh.
one's like 1 to 4, and then the other is like 5 to 8, but they are separating 6th and then 7th and 8th, yeah.
All right, thanks. Gino, do you have a report?
Yeah, I just have a couple, brief items.
Can I make a real quick suggestion when something like that? We talked about, a couple years back, and I realize I don't know what the workload is, but you know, we give certificates to, the students when they achieve things. I'd love to, maybe at the end of every year, as a thank you to the PTAs, maybe give a certificate to the PTA presidents to thank them for everything that they did. Because it gives back to our students, and it just, you know, a lot of times it's the same volunteers, and it might make them feel, acknowledged and appreciated.
That's great.
Yeah, I know you used to, because I got one when I was president.
Yeah, from the principal.
No, I got
Oh,
it
from
from
the
the school
board?
board.
Oh.
You probably
I never saw
were among those who gave
Yeah,
it.
I remember having people in at different points.
I remember because it was at Central. It was at like the middle school.
Summertime.
Oh, during the
Okay.
summer,
Because,
yeah.
because we do it at the end of the year.
And I thought it was very nice. So yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea too.
Mike?
Yeah, their library had air conditioning, that's why we
Is
moved
that
to
why? I was very
Central in
confused.
the summertime.
There was also something going on because it was mobbed. There was a lot of hostility. That's all I remember.
Like, I just want my certificates.
Go ahead, Gino.
So we just wrapped up the first round of our first trip of facilitating vaccinations. We did this in partnership with Virtua. They've been a really fantastic group to work with. We facilitated vaccinations for 282 students between the ages of 12 and 18. The principals have been fantastic, a wonderful job. Counselors were there, administrators were there. I had a chance to pop in today, very well run. They run a great operation at the mega site at the Morristown Hall. So we will be doing our second trip for the second shot for our 16 plus students. And then in 3 weeks, we'll do our second trip with these guys. So really well done. The support was fantastic. The parent sign up really exceeded our expectations. So it's been a great partnership.
Thank you for
Thank
Yeah,
you for
that's great.
organizing.
Yeah, awesome.
Great, it was a team effort. And we are just finishing up the first rounds of our SEL surveys. I put this in a nutshell. Really, the gist of these surveys are to help measure the progress of our SEL initiatives. You recall last fall, November 2019, we completed the same survey, which we considered our baseline data. We've implemented several initiatives over the past 16 months. So this data that comes through now will help us help guide and inform our practice and help determine the degree to which our initiatives have been successful to help reroute, stay on the same course, and help inform future practice. Parents will be receiving an individualized report for each student in grades 3 through 12 that completed a survey, the same one that was done last year. Again, you'll even be able to compare those 2 points in time in the report that you'll get.
That's great.
Great.
My daughter told me that she had to watch some sort of like a video, I don't know if it was a video or a presentation or if it was something that, but they did that right before they took the test.
There wasn't a video or presentation. There
I
was
don't know if it was
a script that was read.
Okay, script.
Yeah, we'll
on how to fill it out, not, I thought she said that it was some sort of discussion about how to handle, she thought it was actually a quiz on what they just learned in class, like it followed a class. No?
No,
Okay.
it's simply saying, this is what the survey is, this is why we're doing it, this is with whom the information will be shared, this is how long it will take, and this is the areas that it will, questions will be asked. Any questions of those two items? Or anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gino. Chuck?
Okay, just a couple, this is gonna be actually short for me. I was telling people, I've been coming to these meetings for years, and superintendents just kind of sit there and nod, and they say, oh yeah, we have a play this weekend, and I've been talking for hours every week, so I'm trying to cut back to this. So just a couple things, the COVID updates are gonna become shorter. You probably saw this beginning in September. The governor put out, students will be in school full-time, everyone in. Virtual is not going to be an option. Naturally, that questions arise from that, like what if I'm quarantined? I'm just not in school for 10 days. So we have to come to terms with that. So I think the difference is opting for virtual and being out for quarantine are two distinctly different things. So I think this is great news. I think it's great. We're going to be back. I also like the fact that it's determined now, so we can plan. I mean, we still have to have some questions about distancing and those things. But I mean, planning, well, we're here, but we still have to improve on this. But for schools who have not yet been back, and there are schools who have not yet been back, knowing now is a pretty big deal. We're getting challenging messaging from different bodies. We have several bodies that oversee us that we take guidance from. You know, I had a couple weeks ago, I had a slide up here that said, the CDC says this, the NJDOH interprets this, Camden County DOH says this, and then we follow Camden County. Now, we're getting things from the NJSIA, which are contradictory to the Department of Health, but both of those oversee aspects of our world, right? So it's becoming very confusing. And the other thing that's happening now is they're coming fast and they're effective immediately. If you think back a couple of weeks ago, even as early as May 1st, when he was going to open restaurants more, it was like, beginning May 10th, we're going to open restaurants. So you had 10 days to plan. Now it's like, hey, no masks starting now. And it's happening that quickly. And what's happening is, since they're coming from different areas, it doesn't feel like they're talking. So the NJSA, as soon as the CDC said outdoor no mask, the NJSA said no mask outside, sports done. The Department of Health hadn't even gotten this guidance yet from the CDC. So we're getting some conflicting reports. I know it's causing angst and consternation to our families. And I can promise you this, I think there's 10 people watching, the 10 people listening to me right now. What's more frustrating and causes more consternation than getting conflicting messages is having to be the people delivering conflicting messages to you, right? And then having to try to interpret it for all the emails back. So that's the challenge we're facing now. I just have the body of the newsletter that went out today. And the thing is, the Department of Health today said very specifically, athletics, outdoors, no mask, no social distance needed. Graduation, masks, and social distancing. And how do you remedy those two messages, right? And they said anything during school hours has to have masks and distancing whenever possible. Well, graduation, so it's we're hoping it's all going to work out. It will work out. We're trying our best to manage the message and get it clear and revisit and be thoughtful about it. And we have our senior proms in 4 days or whatever it is next Thursday. So that's going to be a place where, right now we believe they need to wear masks, but maybe not. And so there's all kinds of those challenges. So we're asking for patience. We're doing our best to get through these things. COVID numbers are there. We have 3 people total in the district right now who are positive. These are our quarantining numbers. A couple of weeks ago, it was almost 300. And now we're down to a total of 20 and only 3 positive students. The high school, who has a very high percentage of students fully vaccinated right now, is one of the reasons why this is. Also, the fact that the vaccine, you can come back from quarantine earlier than you could. It was no longer 14 days. But you read the letters when they come home. Sometimes by the time the positive test comes back and we notify people, they're already 8 to 10 days of quarantine, right? So sometimes the quarantines happen pretty quickly. So they're good numbers. Here's our number, our positives. You can see that they're low right now. By grade band, the high school's been the most there. This came out today, the Cali score. For the first time in a long time, you're seeing green sections of the state, which is significant. And you'll see that Southwest, we're down to 7.9. At one time we were almost at 50 not that long ago. And here's our chart showing those. So things are looking like they are reasonable. I'm not going to say coming to an end. I want to jinx myself. As I said often, I've been wrong every single time I've said something about this. I want to say it looks good, but it does look good. It looks like we are able to get back to that normalcy as we plan through the summer. That's that information. This is my fun chart. I have to keep the case rate every day. And just upcoming presentations. We had a bunch we have to cram in. We keep on trying to get them all in, but over the next meeting, the June and then in July, we're going to get all of those reports in. And then in the fall, at the request, we're going to start bringing in different aspects of the school. So we're going to talk about what athletics looks like and how it functions, how the extracurricular arts function, what they look like. We have a ton of social service and community clubs. Our extracurricular, we were talking about this in negotiation. We have a huge commitment to extracurriculars, not just sports, but stipend positions, right? Clubs and activities, and what does that look like? And you'd be amazed at some of the offerings and how this functions. So we're going to try to get you an insight on all of those pieces as we go along about some of the other ways things that function in school. So that is very quickly my report. Any questions?
I have a question that I hate that you even asked this, but in September, and no one knows what's happening, but there is the thought that this might be cyclical.
Right.
With students that are vaccinated, I'm sure that quarantining will be different, right? So if you're vaccinated, then you don't have to quarantine. And are you gonna do you have to present a card?
We have the information. So when students or staff are vaccinated, we have access to if you've been vaccinated, you go and you are registered in the system. We have access to that system.
Okay.
So we know which of our students are vaccinated, which of our staff are vaccinated.
Okay.
So mine was along those lines. You said that there's a high percentage of the high school vaccinated. I'm not looking for an exact number, but is that 40%, like just around about?
It's closer to 80%, correct?
Our grades 11 and 12 are close to 80%.
Oh, that's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, especially because not everyone's.
It's not even the people that went with the school. You're saying you built up
Yeah,
a
yeah.
system that you just said you had access to.
Correct.
Excellent.
So my question is more budgetary for the fall, since there isn't going to be a remote option, and you're going to treat it more like out of school homebound service. Have you considered what the budget impact would be to provide? I mean, because every meeting we say, we're going to provide 10 hours of service for student number, blah, 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 from this teacher for homebound instruction, because they got mono or whatever. I mean, this is just going to take it to another level. Maybe.
The short answer is no, we have not considered the budget implications there yet. We don't even have a plan yet. I mean, the other option is we live stream the kids in, which we do now. So it wouldn't have that quote unquote homebound at a cost to it. It's so that's something we have to work our way through.
Okay.
I would think it'd have a very small budget implication if, given the number of vaccinated and given those things. And one of the things discussed today with the Department of Health is what will quarantine even look like? Right? Their quarantining guidelines may be much different in 4 months than they are right now.
Sure.
But I would think we'd lean more toward a live streaming situation than actually sending someone to a homebound instruction.
I hope they don't have in-school quarantine because we don't have the space.
No.
Did I don't know if you presented it, I missed it, but I thought we had talked about this. Did the governor say that the districts are no longer, by next September there, did he already announce they're not required to have You said it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yep, no online.
So what are we talking about?
No, but if you
So
are,
someone's quarantined. So
Oh,
the thing would be, if you don't have any virtual instruction and someone's quarantined and you have no way to deliver instruction, you're in essence suspending them from school for 10 days for sitting next to someone who's positive. So you've got to educate them.
Right.
But I think the difference is if we provide instruction for them through virtual, that's different than a parent saying, I'm going to keep my kid home from school because.
Understood.
Yeah.
So there's the difference in the two.
Okay.
One more question.
Sure.
With all of the guideline changes, do we have any idea of when our board meetings might look different?
Not right now. I think that, and this is just, the things have been coming so fast and furious. And the one piece was everything's open, no masks, except for schools. Right? The little parenthetical piece there, right? So we'll have to keep an eye on that. I would, if you were to ask me to guess, I would think our July meeting could be with the horseshoe-shaped desks here, doing that type of thing and having shared out.
Like all things that are going back to whatever normal is, I mean, we could rethink how we want it to look. I mean, it's just, we can do it another time. Just think in your head, like, what would it look like? How could we possibly set it up? I don't like this. But,
I don't like this. I was even thinking if we could do something at the, when we do the retreat, either do it outside or, I mean, people could come and sit around.
well, they have to be able to come. It's
Well, that's what I
open.
mean. So I don't know that we'd need to live stream it if we allow, because there's no limit.
I feel
It
like
just, this doesn't seem conducive
I
to,
have to speak up because our reading, handing out summer reading, schools reimagined, so it fits in perfectly. You can reimagine your.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, good. Thank you, Chuck. All right, I'm gonna have, this small thing I'll say is that the board congratulates our new incoming commissioners. We had an election, so we look forward to working with Colleen Bianco-Bezic, Kevin Roche, and Frank Troy. I guess the Democratic norms hold in Haddonfield. Colleen will be the new mayor. She got the most votes, so that's still, I think, is selected amongst the three, but that's a tradition. So that's exciting, and we look forward to working with them. Congratulations. Now I will ask John to put the public comments screen up on our YouTube broadcast. Let's see if anyone wanted to call in. While John's doing that, I'm going to have Mike read. We had one written comment submission. Mike, you can go ahead and read that.
Yes, so we had one writing comment from Jennifer Ness on Forwood Road, and Jennifer wrote, in the past, we were told that district did not offer full-day kindergarten due to space constraints. Now that additional kindergarten teachers were hired, and the majority of these teachers have their own classrooms, has there been discussions of starting full-day kindergarten next year? Thank you for all your hard work during a very difficult year.
Good question. I'll ask the administration to get back to Jennifer. And Jennifer, was it?
Jennifer Nash, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We have her email address too, right?
Yes, we do.
Is the screen, so just as a reminder, you dial in with the instructions on the screen, mute your phone. I'll call, just as a reminder, I'll call the number.
776.
Okay, 856 ending in 76. You can, you're with us?
Hello, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the number.
Yeah, that's you. 76. Perfect.
Good, okay. Hi, I haven't talked, it's Linda Skirm, or sorry, I can't talk, on Ardmore. I haven't talked to you guys in a while. I had a few questions, actually not having to do with COVID. So going back to a year or two ago, we discussed as a community, as a town, to maybe change how questions and answers section were done, especially when the board was considering changing something, like going back to the grading and that huge uproar because the public felt they didn't have enough opportunity to express their concerns. So now that COVID is coming behind us, are you going to start gearing up of trying to figure out how to publicize that hot topics are going to be discussed, give the public an opportunity to discuss them. Because now I feel like I'm talking into a black hole. My second question is, there was discussion years ago about having grade-centric elementary schools, which meant that a kindergarten, first grade would be in one school, second and third graders would be in another school, and that you would divvy up, and we would have to run our kids around town depending where the grades are. I was wondering if that was still on the agenda to be discussed. If so, I think it should be publicly out there and have people give their opinion. And then, Chuck, I know last time I dialed in, there was a lot of discussion that the COVID cases were because of this one party. But I also have to wonder why you picked the date you picked to go back full force when it was not 2 weeks after spring break, where I think if you had waited 2 weeks after spring break, it would have reduced some of the cases. I just think, waiting that extra week would have been beneficial to reduce community spread. And I think that's all. Oh, also, I had heard through the rumor bill that the school board had a fund of substantial money, and I'm wondering if that money is still out there after all the COVID expenditures, and what we're going to be doing with the land that's next to the high school, and what's happening to that yellow house that seems to be falling apart. And is taxpayer money supposed to improve that house? That's all.
All right, thanks. I think that's great, Linda. You have like 4 really interesting questions, and grade level schools. We haven't talked about that at all. I generally don't. You can hang up. We're not going to go back and forth. I would invite you, though, however, to catch up on some board meetings. We probably have 18 hours that you could review, but some of the stuff you talked about, there's no fund that the board has. I don't know. Anyway, okay, very good. Any other callers?
You're my file head, right?
I don't know.
So just the one.
Okay.
Why did you say so?
I didn't know what you meant. Okay, not seeing any others. I'm going to close the public comment section. And we'll read through the agenda. Bear with me 1 second, and then we will read through it. 1 minute just to see if somebody calls in.
Yeah, the slides down from YouTube.
All right, good. All right, governance. Any questions or discussion you'd like to have about governance?
We're just gonna pull that policy, right, until we discuss it in policy.
Well, I think if I don't think we're rushing it if they come up. I mean, I'm okay with having, if you guys have a discussion, Gino, Chuck, and Lynn, and something makes sense and is clear, this doesn't seem overly complicated, I just think there was some unanticipated consequence, bring it to us. If not, it's a first reading, and we can just pull it on the night. It's just a matter of pulling it. I'm not hell-bent on pulling it tonight unless there's not a simple solution.
I think it would be very straightforward, so I think it's going to keep it all.
I think, yeah, a 15, 20-minute conversation about just making sure we all have the same idea of what it means in mind is all we need.
And then if there's a language change, tell us before the vote or the next meeting. Any other governance? Curriculum, special ed, anything to discuss? Okay, personnel?
I had one, oh, sorry, did someone?
I just wanted you to go a little slower because I was trying to re-look at everything.
Oh, I just assumed you had pre-read it.
Oh, my question is the
It's just there's a
procedural
lot,
thing.
I didn't see what's in what section.
Okay,
It's, just for the personnel, when you click on the attachment, some of the personnel is their ID and some is their name. And is there something that we should be consistent about that? Or is there a reason why some are numbers and some are names?
Yeah, if you see a number for medical reasons, so it's protected.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
Heather, if you have something in curriculum and special ed, by all means. Do you?
No, I don't, it's further down, but it's just, you know, I got scroll, I got 5 lines on a screen.
Discuss,
Engineer.
doing it.
Engineer. Justin, what's
I
that?
took the last one.
We'll discuss this meeting, next meeting, the principal situation.
Yeah, this is kind of one of these, next weekend, she'll have,
Yeah, we'll have I'll take it to the principal, we're gonna ask her to attend next meeting. So we'll be there.
But I think it's cat's out of the bag once it becomes public, so they made a hire, it's exciting, and we're happy to have, but next weekend is generally when we do the fanfare. Okay, so personnel, any other comments about personnel? All right. Business finance recommendations?
I'm curious about the NutriServe. How if you're able to just pop it open, like I was just curious what the different columns kind of stood for. If you're able to just do a quick high level overview, if not, I can tell you.
What is the question?
I just wasn't entirely sure what I was looking at on the NutriServe, you know, we got different columns.
Oh,
Some are
NutriServe, I
peach,
didn't hear
some
you.
are green. I didn't know what the acronym stood for. I was just curious how to read the document.
So we're in the National School Lunch Program, so that's why that's the only column that actually has numbers.
The orange
So-
column has numbers,
so
the red
the-
column has numbers.
So, but that's for anything, right, so National School Lunch Program, that's,
That's the NSL.
yeah, that's NSLP, the catering menu, that's for anything basically outside of, anything that could be eligible for reimbursement under the National School Lunch Program, so eater meals, a la carte meals, things like that.
Okay. What are the 2 middle columns?
To be honest, since it's not applicable list, I have no idea.
And I'm just. I lost where it was on here. But we're, approving this for next school year?
Oh, yes, this is for the renewal for 21, 22.
Have we received guidance how long the National School Lunch Program reimbursement program is going to last?
These till a year, 30th, 2022.
Wow, that's great. And from a process standpoint, have the survey forms been working with the Friday noon deadline and all that?
Actually, we had a wellness committee meeting a couple days ago, and there's parent participation in that committee, and for me, and if Chuck and Gino have received any, it's very good, actually. Very good feedback on how that's worked. There are, I will say, there are a lot of, because of National School Lunch Program, there are a lot of federal guidelines that govern how we have to go about or doing things in a whatever timely fashion to meet those mandates.
Mike, just following the document, like we make an assumption of how much income they're gonna bring in, and then we estimate the expenses, which is easier to plan. And so we're estimating that they make a small profit, and then are we on the hook for if they don't bring in that profit?
That's our.
Okay. But we're basically on the hook for the bonded cost, regardless of how many lunches are purchased.
Yes.
Perfect. Just making sure I follow the document.
Any other business finance? Any comments on the minutes?
I have one. Just little, but for A, the regular meeting, and C2, PTA Updates, it says HEA is raising funds for beautification. It should be T.
The for the April 22nd.
I think it was just a choice.
They are the recipients of the raise.
All right, items for future consideration. I have one. I have been tardy in our superintendent evaluation could be the word. And we'll get to it. I'm going to lean on Mike a little bit. He makes me sign 600 contracts, so I'm going to make him set that up and send it out. The only good thing is for every month we're delayed, Chuck does something else wonderful that we have to pat him on the back for. So I think this is good for his eval. But I don't want to taint you. We can be critical. He's not perfect. I could list a lot of things. Any other items for future consideration?
One thing I just want to keep on the table as we start transitioning back, and it's specifically some areas curriculum, but not all, but the idea of what can we take from COVID, and really, like we were just talking about to our meetings, we don't want to let all of that go, like the idea of offering hybrid classes if we can't offer a full class, especially at, the high school level. And all the benefits that we've gained, I want to make sure we hold on to that. So if we could somehow, keep that in discussion so that we don't let those things go, especially because everyone's now been trained and the students know how to use the technology and they know the routines. So I just don't want to lose all of that.
That's a great point, Jamie, and we know that was a long-term goal.
Right, that it was a crash course, but we
How
did
did
it.
we ever get there?
Yeah, that's something we really do need to do. And I think even people who came to this kicking and screaming, which was most of us, look back and say, well, there's 10 things I do now I would never go back and do again.
Right,
So,
yeah.
and that slide back is an easy one because it's a comfortable place, right?
Right.
Because most teachers are in school because they like school. It was 30 years ago. That's when they were in school. 10 years ago. That's an excellent point. And I think getting a group together to say these are the things that worked well and then encourage them to continue to go.
Yeah, I just think there's so much opportunity here that I wouldn't want to let go.
I'm going to do it and scratch the itch, but our caller suggested about the Q&A section that somehow the board is not proactive in our discussions of changes going forward. The board for about 9 to 12 months did a board bulletin, which was our attempt at identifying things that people may be concerned about in the future, not knowing whether or not, so we put out a public agenda. Our meetings are recorded and available on demand. They're also publicly broadcast. And the board meeting bulletin minutes were viewed under 5 times.
I think we,
Yeah, you were proving.
They were not viewed at all. So we did make the decision as a part of the overall communications. We're not going to write those board meeting bulletin minutes. We expect that the public has a responsibility to be paying attention to the work we do here. So we are and we invite it. We're very, very welcoming to calls and public is available. We have seats for the public if they'd like. You can go to the website and sign up to sit in. And when we're back to normal, of course, come out. Things happen. People get unhappy with change. It's okay. what I had, the last thing I'll say about this is what I had seen in the year prior to COVID, which was shocking as a servant of the public, and it was the first time I had seen it in local, even through a lot of drama, is this "you didn't tell us" attitude that, and basically saying, like, you know, we had to actually say to families, we did tell you, it was in the newspaper, and it was January 22nd that we mentioned it in the newsletter. That's not good enough. I didn't read it. Well, the responsibility is actually on you to read and pay attention to the stuff. So I don't mean to be like, snippy with it, but we really, there's no sneaky budget. There's no surprise change. We're going to make changes. There are going to be things that have been traditions for 20 years, and sometimes those traditions are going to go away. It sounds like, we're going to get back to a post-COVID world that might look a little different, and things may not to come. Listen, join, do whatever you want to do. But I had to say that because it's like the idea that we're not being transparent blows my mind, frankly. So thanks for indulging me. No one's watching, but it'll be on the tape. It'll be on the tape.
You
So
can
that'll be
refer to
good.
it in a year from now.
That's right. That's right. That jerk. Anyway, anything else? All right. Anyone want to make a motion to close?
Yes.
David
Second.
and Lynn. Done. Closed. Thanks, John.